On May 7th, 2025, an article by James Walsh was published to the New York Magazine. This article was entitled, "Everyone is Cheating Their Way Through College. ChatGPT has unraveled the entire academic project," which focused on the usage of AI, LLMs, and specifically ChatGPT in college classrooms. Now, to say there was a discussion about this article on the internet would be a bit of an understatement. My background in both AI and college education, I would like to try to answer the question, at least from my perspective, of how screwed are we? Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe McCann, and for several years I have been making videos on the internet, mostly relating to mathematical topics. But outside of my embarrassing side hobby of content creation, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science and applied mathematics and a master's degree in statistical data science, both from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Starting in 2020, I have also been teaching several classes at the New Jersey Institute of Technology as an adjunct professor. I have taught classes in both discrete mathematics for computer scientists and computer networking, in addition to my day job as a software engineer. Now, it's important to note to state that I am not a representative of the school. I'm just speaking on my own personal experience, which, as being only 5 years, is not super long, but I think it is useful and will provide at least some insight into this discussion, coupled with my educational background in data science and machine learning, which honestly I think is something that's kind of lacking from a lot of people's discussions, because I'm looking at people talking about these issues and they're not educators. They have no background in AI or machine learning, so they have no idea what the technology that they're talking about even does. And I found that this is a problem on both sides of the discussion. The people who are the complete anti-AI purists who are like, this stuff is completely destroying society, and then people on the other side of the spectrum who are like, if you don't know how to use AI or you don't use it at all, you need to get with the times. I think a lot of the people in this discussion are just speaking entirely out of their ass. And whenever we talk about details and we want to talk about something in the full picture, the first thing we need to do is we need to actually discuss definitions. Because if I'm talking about some topic and I have some idea in my head of how that topic is supposed to work or what some word means, and you have a completely different idea of what that topic represents or what that word means, then what I'm saying is going to be completely meaningless to you, because you're going to listen to the words I'm saying and say, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He doesn't even know what the word means. Before we talk about AI, before we talk about the article, before we talk about literally anything, I think we need to talk about what the fuck is the point of college. Because I swear, if you ask 10 people what they think the point of college is, you're going to get 12 different answers. Straightforward answer would be to say that the point of college is to learn. You are going there in order to expand your mind and learn about a bunch of different subjects. But when I say that, what do I mean? Well, when we go through standard grade school education, like K through 12 education, this is education that literally everyone gets. This is what the assumed baseline knowledge of a good society should be. You go to school, you learn stuff, and not only do you learn facts that are supposed to help you later in life, you also learn the important skill of how you are supposed to learn other things in the future. Throughout all of those years of school, you are supposed to improve your skill of learning so that when you need to learn something new in the future, you know how to do it. And in theory, college is supposed to be the upgraded version of this, in which you get more into the weeds of more advanced things, more advanced art, more advanced history, more advanced discussions on like philosophy and sociology and mathematics and science and physics. The stuff you will learn in physics and engineering blow anything you will learn in high school out of the water. Because again, in theory, this is supposed to be the next step out of grade school where you can go and you can improve learning even more and learn even more about different topics, especially ones that are specialized in your desired area. If we consider just the idea of schooling, the idea of like working out the muscle that is your brain, college is supposed to be one step above high school sports. Maybe it's like the college sports of learning. Now, of course, most of you are probably rolling your eyes at me because that, in theory, sounds wonderful. I mean, we should just be able to go to college so that we can learn and we can expand our mind and expand our horizons. But in reality, most people nowadays go to college in order to get a degree because for many jobs that are high paying or good careers, you need a degree in order to get those jobs. Now, how we move from most people going to college so that they can expand their minds and become better learned people to this now modern phenomenon in which you are going to college solely to get a degree so that you could get a high paying job is a discussion that probably could go on for hours, and I am not qualified to talk about because I haven't learned anything about it. But I think all that matters for our discussion is just to understand that a lot of people go to college so that they can get a job, not so much because they really care or buy into the aspect of learning for the sake of learning and expanding your mind. With this in mind, it cannot be overstated the importance of how fucking expensive college is. For so many people, going to college in order to be able to get a good job once you have completed and gotten your degree is an insane economic investment in oneself. I mean, you are spending literally tens of thousands of dollars in order for the prospect and the potential at getting a good job in the future. And of course, this doesn't really apply to everybody. I mean, there are people who still go to college in order to purely just expand their minds and learn, or maybe they want to go on to more schooling in the future, perhaps get a PhD, or maybe they want to go into the art. But even with all of that, it is still incredibly expensive to go to college. So much so that very, very few people can actually afford to go to college and just pay for it outright. You either have to get very, very lucky with a scholarship, you have to be on financial aid, or you need to take out insanely expensive loans. And with this in mind, the cost of potentially failing a class in college has the potential to be insanely damaging and insanely economically problematic for a person. I mean, if somebody who's on a scholarship fails a class, it is possible that they lose a scholarship and will have to drop out of school entirely. So from this perspective, it's not entirely unexpected that a ton of people are going to turn to using ChatGPT to do all of their college homework and assignments, because ChatGPT is actually a very good writer compared to some students. I mean, trust me, you should see some of the writing of some of my students. It's actually terrible. So when you have a tool that will write an essay for you so that you don't nuke your grade as soon as you submit your horribly written essay, many students are going to take that, because if you are given the option between doing it yourself and learning and then getting a shitty ass grade at the end of it versus doing it with an AI assistant, submitting something that was completely written by AI and then getting a better grade, then they're going to take the option that's going to give you a better grade. Now, this only really applies for like the bottom tier of students, because what I've found is that AI, while it does a fine job at most assignments, it doesn't do a spectacular job at most assignments. I often see that it's like B or C work, and Bs are generous. And this idea of using AI so that you don't fail a class and then you don't lose your scholarship, forcing you to drop out of college and then completely change the trajectory of your life, is what I would consider a justifiable usage of AI cheating in the classroom. Because just getting something to do your essay for you or do your math assignment for you without thinking of how to do that, yes, that would be considered a form of cheating. In the same way that hiring somebody to write an essay for you would be considered a form of cheating. Not all justifiable reasons fall into this category of just giving an AI an assignment so that it does it for you and then you get a better grade than what you would normally be able to do. I have talked to some students who have discussed how they use AI, and some of them have talked to me about how they use it almost like a, for lack of better words, shadowboxing partner, in which they can ask AI to help explain a certain topic to them that they didn't fully understand when they were in lecture. Because assume a student is in class and then I teach some topic and they just don't understand it and they have a question. Well, first thing they could do is they could ask a question in class. And that is a lot of anxiety. A ton of students don't do that. And as much as I beg my students to ask questions and I try to make it as welcoming of an environment as possible with as little judgment as possible, students do not ask questions in the classroom. And this has been the way it is since long before AI. So if they're not going to ask me a question in class, they could ask me a question over email and office hours. And as much as I would love for my students to hit me up over email or come to my office hours, many of them don't. And I myself didn't go to my own professor's office hours many times when I had questions for them. Or they could find their answers online or ask their friends for assistance. And when I was in college, I mean, I frequently did this. If I had a question, I would go to the internet, I would go to Stack Overflow, I would go to Reddit in order to find the answers to my questions. Not necessarily answers to homework questions, but ways to reinforce my understanding. I would look inside of my textbook. I would ask my friends to help me understand concepts that I didn't understand. When I think of students using AI to explain concepts to them in the way that their friends might help them understand something, I feel that those two use cases are very similar. And I know that like AI is very often wrong. I mean, I've seen it make mistakes in the past, but then again, the friends who were teaching me shit were also often wrong. And how reliable is really Reddit for teaching you material? Like, yes, we assume that your friend has learned the material and will teach it to you back, or we assume that on Reddit, the upvote downvote system is going to actually make it so that you get a good response, but those are not guarantees. Outside of the justifiable reasons, there is the single unjustifiable reason that is at the head of all AI education debates, which is just purely student laziness. And as much as students might want to argue the fact that what they're doing is because they are trying to learn, or maybe their professor is just so terrible so they can't actually understand what their professor is saying enough to get the questions that they want answered, or the homework is so difficult because the professor didn't go over it within the lecture. All of those things have been a case of the past, and students of the past have gotten over it and they've learned from it. And now there's just this tool out there that just can provide you with answers immediately. And the students just, a lot of them, don't want to put in the effort. And honestly, I can't even blame them, because if I was in school and I had this tool, I would absolutely use it. I would like to think that if I was in that position, I would not have it do out the assignments for me, but I'm not in that position, so I have no idea what I would do. And this is just an extension of what has already been happening in colleges that people just don't really want to talk about. Before ChatGPT, Chegg was just absolutely running rampant, and people were just doing homework assignments by getting other people to do it for them. If you had a tough enough math question, put it on Chegg and then somebody will do it for you. As a side tangent, I fucking hate Chegg because it's super fucking expensive, and whenever I had problems with my Physics 3 homework, I always looked into Google to see how I would solve the questions, and the only places that had the questions and the explanations was Chegg, and I never wanted to pay the fucking $15 a month fee in order to get Chegg. So I learned to hate it because I had to look at it and just see them taunting me with the answers that I could never have. But this idea of student laziness really cuts through the heart of the New York Mag article. Now, I would tell you to read the article yourself, but one, it's behind a paywall, and two, I know that nobody's going to do that anyway, even if I beg you to read the article yourself, so I will summarize it for you. In the article, the author interviews a bunch of students and a bunch of professors, in which the students talk about the reasons why they use ChatGPT for effectively every assignment, and they say that everybody they know uses ChatGPT 100%, which pretty much boils down to two reasons. One, you get better grades if you use ChatGPT, and two, it's just way more faster than doing it yourself. Whereas the professors are effectively in complete despair, and they're talking about how the educational experience is ruined because now students are not learning at all. They're just shutting their brains off and using AI to do all the assignments for them. Now, to quickly summarize the video that we've talked about, despite college being intended for the purpose of learning, many students go there purely because they want to get a degree so that they can get a high-paying job. However, college is incredibly expensive, meaning that the risk of failure could be insanely costly and problematic. This fairly justifiable reason, coupled with the fact that many students are just fucking lazy and don't want to put in the effort, has led to the explosion of the usage of AI across college campuses so that people can use it instead of thinking or putting in hard effort, which has led many people to believe, both on the internet and real life, and even some college professors, that the age of thinking is over and students are going to get through college without learning anything, and they're going to become effectively illiterate despite being college graduates. And now we are ready to talk on the question of how screwed are we? And my personal perspective is that in the short term, maybe a little screwed, but in the long term, probably not all that screwed. Here's the important thing that you need to know. As somebody who teaches students, my goal is to teach the fucking students. It's not to just pass them through the class. My goal is to make sure that they learn and understand the material. So if I know that they have this tool available that makes it so that certain methods of teaching no longer work, I am going to do everything in my power to adjust my methods so that even with this tool in existence, my students still learn. And I think a lot of people's opinions kind of fall into this broader category of doomerism, in which they just think that, the way things are, and it's just rolling down a hill like a snowball, and there's nothing that anyone could do to change it or adjust that fact, when the reality is just completely different. Professors are not going to just sit down, roll over, and die and let their students just completely use AI rampantly while they learn absolutely nothing. Quite the contrary. Personally, I get quite pissed, and I know that the r/professor subreddit gets very, very pissed at blatant AI usage instead of the act of learning. In fact, discussions on AI have been the number one topic on the professor subreddit for a very, very long time, since pretty much ChatGPT came out. So I do think we're in for some change. I don't think it's going to be a painless process, and it probably will be an incredibly painful process. But I think we are in for some change, that will make it so that professors do everything in their power to ensure that their students are still learning, even with AI at their disposal. Right now, the tech is new and nobody knows how it should be impacting things or how we should be using it. And many people don't know how to use it at all. But as time progresses, people are going to get a better sense of how this is going to fit into the world. I mean, personally, I'm not like an AI anti purist. I myself use ChatGPT in order to help me program side projects or debug things that are causing me trouble. And for that purpose, it's quite good. It saves me down a lot of time on coding in otherwise horrid methods of debugging, such as Stack Overflow, which is the most toxic place on the planet. But if you were to ask me if I thought AI could replace me or replace a teacher or replace a programmer, I would say no, because the things that you learn that make you any of those things are way different than the things that AI can actually do for you. But students who in school go through the whole process of cheating and relying purely on AI are not going to learn those qualities that make them better programmers or better artists or better thinkers. They're just going to be people who can just type shit into ChatGPT. And I feel that the people who are just the people who can type shit into ChatGPT will be the first people replaced. Because if your purpose of going through college, right, is to get a degree and is to get a job afterwards, you would want to make sure that you are as secure as possible in that job once you finally get it. But if you don't know how to do anything other than just write shit into ChatGPT, then what's the point of even having a company? You could get somebody without a degree to do that for you. And that's something I think students will come to realize, that you can't use it to replace the learning process. You could use it to replace your effort, but if you replace your effort, you're not going to learn anything. But in that sense, maybe I have too much faith in students to actually have forward thinking. And this might be an insanely hot take, but I actually think at the end of the day, the usage of AI is going to make lives significantly harder for students in the future. Because in the past, what I have often said when I start off my semester is I tell students, if you are going to get caught cheating, you deserve to fail. Because not only are you not good enough at the material to do it yourself, so you have to cheat, but you're not even good at cheating. So if you're not even good at cheating, what are you good at? You deserve to fail the fucking class. So the problem is that AI is now raising the bar. So at this baseline level of the quality that AI can put out, if you can't surpass that baseline level, what's going to be the point of even having you do the work? What's going to be the point of even hiring you? You're not better than AI. So now the new C level is probably going to be whatever AI puts out. So potentially, college might start getting even harder because professors are going to raise the difficulty so that they can weed out AI responses. AI can only do so well on certain tasks. It's going to get maybe like D or C level, and they can have good students rise above it. And I could just say from personal experience, this is also what happened in my classroom. As AI started getting better and better, the math problems I had to give my students became more difficult to the point where AI couldn't solve it, but they were absurdly challenging. This didn't mean that students still didn't try to do it with AI, but the shit that they submitted was wrong, so they got bad grades. Perhaps some students did use AI in order to help them get the right answer even on the challenging problems, but those students wouldn't have been able to just put the problem into the prompt, get it out, and then plug that in just by copy and pasting because the problem was too difficult for AI to just do. So those students would have had to do more serious effort than just typing into ChatGPT. So to answer the question on how screwed are we, yes, there are a lot of students who are going to try to get around and not learn anything to just cheat their way through college, but students have always been trying to just cheat their way through college because some students are lazy, and this is just the newest fad. Professors are always going to try to fight against it so that they can force their students to learn the material. And another thing that is so incredibly important for people to understand is that there will still always be class time. And I understand that a lot of professors are already talking about saying that class time is going to be used for in-class essays and in-class tests. And absolutely, those are going to be used to make sure that students aren't just cheating on their assignments. But also, I have found that just as much as other semesters, students are still engaging with class. Of course, there are students who are not engaging because there are students who are just attending just for the sake of attendance. However, anecdotally, I will say that this past spring 2025 class is one of the most engaged class groups I have ever had in my entire time while teaching, despite the fact that ChatGPT was so good that it was able to solve many of the problems on my first couple of homework assignments. And even with this, I would say that my students actually came out having learned a solid amount of material because they came in with class engaged and ready to learn, even if they were utilizing AI back at home. Because until we get AI robots that could just fully take your place without anybody knowing, class time is class time, and you can't have an AI spoof yourself at class time. At the end of the day, people like to find solutions to their problems. So if a professor thinks that their students aren't learning, they are going to find a way to make sure that their students learn. And yes, a professor who is watching this video is probably thinking, I don't want to have to do this. I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of forcing these kids who don't want to learn. But at the end of the day, that is our job as educators, to teach and inform these students. And I know we will.